Welcome to Learn Knitting Now. I'm Callista, and today I'm going to share a little bit about how I sell my knitted items online. If you are interested in learning how to knit, I would love to have you over at Learn Knitting Now. We do classes, we do live streams teaching you how to knit if you're an absolute beginner or if you're somebody who knows a little bit of the basics and want to learn something a little more advanced. There is something for you there. Also, if you like this video, please subscribe to my channel, and I'd love to hear about what else you would like to know about in knitting. If you're a crafter of any kind and you've ever had a friend tell you, you should sell those, and then you say, okay, I'm going to sell these, and then you make things and you put them out there and nobody buys them, you are in good company. That absolutely happened to me. I started a shop on Etsy, like many people do, and I didn't sell one thing. I think there's probably several factors that were into that. I didn't spend a bunch of money on advertising. I didn't have a whole lot of stuff for inventory. I mean, knitting things takes time and effort and money. So I had maybe 8 or 9 items. And I also don't like to do customs. I like to knit what I like to knit, not necessarily what someone asks me to knit specifically. So, and then I also wasn't putting new items up every few days, which is something you have to do on Etsy to get into their algorithm. And when you're knitting something like a sweater, that takes time. And that is not going to be something you can just crank out in a day or two and put up on Etsy. So I saw pretty quickly that Etsy wasn't going to be something that was going to be successful for me if I was wanting to sell items that I've made. So it's probably important for me to mention, I'm not trying to make a living from selling items that I make. I'm really just wanting to fund my obsession. I'm trying to recoup the money I spent on the materials, a little something for my time. I know I'm not going to get back even like minimum wage for the amount of time I'm putting into an item, because that would make something so expensive nobody's going to buy it. So I go into it knowing that I'm going to make my money back for my materials, maybe another 20, 30 bucks. And that's what I'm going to get for it. Some people might say, oh, you're undervaluing yourself. I mean, that's probably not wrong, but it's also, in my experience, not a price that I'm going to get in the marketplace. So the first thing I did was I decided, what do I want to make? This is my hobby. This is something I do for fun. This is something I do to relax. And so I am going to make something that I enjoy making. For example, something that a lot of people love and buy are little stuffy animals that, like little levies. And I don't enjoy making those. There are a lot of little tiny parts that you then sew together. That's not fun for me. In knitting, I absolutely can do it. I have the skills to do that, but it wouldn't be enjoyable for me. So those are out. I'm not going to do those, even though I know that that's something that is going to sell well. I'm not doing that. So what do I like to make? I like to make kids sweaters. So for me, setting out, I know that I like to knit kids sweaters. So where am I going to go where there's people who might be interested in buying kids sweaters, and specifically wool kids sweaters? Because that's what I like to make. That's a material that I like to use. So I'm thinking to myself, who would put a wool sweater on their kids? And so for that, I was going to Facebook groups that are buy, sell, trade Facebook groups for moms who are more naturally minded, want to dress their kids in natural fibers, maybe are a little more health conscious, like organic stuff, use essential oils, like that kind of a person. And so I started looking for buy, sell, trade groups with those keywords, and I joined a few. And then I read all their rules, because nobody's out here trying to get around anybody's rules. So some of the groups like had specific brands that were allowed in their groups. And so if I'm making a handmade item, it's not one of those brands and I'm not gonna be able to sell it there. And I just unfollowed or left that group, whatever it was. So I ended up with about three different buy, sell, trade Facebook groups that handmade items were allowed and that the vastly women in there were dressing their kids in wool clothes. This is a thing. This is a subculture in the United States, in parts of Canada, that there are mamas that's what they prefer to do. So that's where I want to be because that's what I'm making. So then I started making the items and putting them up for sale. It is a seasonal thing. So in the fall is when I get the best sales. So even though I like to make items all year round, usually like right now it's May when I'm making this video, it'll probably be June by the time this video comes out. That's not a time that I'm going to post an item for sale. I am going to, well, I might, but I'm not going to like bring down the price or anything. If it doesn't sell right away, I'll take it down. I'll make several sweaters over the summer and then put them up for sale in the fall. And I will likely get a lot of good sales from that. This last thing I do, and I just recently started doing this, was in those buy, sell, trade groups, a lot of times they will have ISO, in search of threads. And I'm taking a look in those ISO threads to see what people are looking for. Sometimes they're looking for specific items from specific brands, but I can make something that looks very similar, although I am not going to directly make exactly that thing because nobody's wanting to get in trouble for copyright infringement here. So for example, a couple of weeks ago, I saw this sweater that this mama was looking for, a specific sweater, and several mamas were like, oh, that's so great. I would love to buy one too. And it was a neutral color with white or cream color work on it. And it was for a littler kid, like 5 and under. And so I said to myself, I too can make this thing. So I went and this is a pattern that I bought that the designer says on there that you can sell items made from her pattern. And I made the pattern. And I really think this is going to sell well. So those are just a few of the tips that I have for selling items. If you sell items, I'd be really happy to hear what works for you. And so we can just share with each other.